Lesson number 4, constructing a run chart. So back in lesson 3, we had looked at the example of measuring the time for a lunch serving process. We had created a table that looks a lot like this, where we had the day of week, the time it started, the time it ended, and the total time. But what do we do next? Well, in this lesson, we're going to learn how to construct a run chart. So the data we're going to use for the run chart is the total time, which I've just noted up here, so that we can then erase this table and construct our run chart. So we'll start with the basics of a run chart, the axis. So we have the horizontal axis, which is usually time, and the vertical axis, which is usually whatever it is you're measuring. So in our case, it's the process time of the lunch process. So process time for lunch in minutes time. So this is day of week. Day of week. And so on as we gathered more data. So when we look at our data points up here, we see that the highest number is 37. So I'm going to say this will be 40 minutes. Half will be 20, half of that is 10, and then 30 goes right around here. So this is the time in minutes of the run chart, excuse me, of the process. So on Monday, it took 34 minutes. So we're going to create a dot there. Tuesday was 31. Wednesday, 37. 33. And 31 for Friday. So now we're going to connect all these dots. And that's the start of our run chart. But we're actually missing something in this run chart, and that is the title. So we're going to call this duration of lunch service process. In minutes. So this first week worth of data is what you might call a baseline. And now the team has, after this first week, they've implemented their first change idea. So on the chart, we're going to mark change idea number 1. So whatever that would be, you would put in a note of what it was. And you would just indicate that it was happening after this time. So they measure for 3 days of the next week after this happens, and they find that the time is now way up here. So now connecting these dots, it appears that the process has become worse. So they decide to get rid of that process change and go back to the usual way of doing things. They measure for 2 more days, and they find that it's come back to about normal. So now they're going to implement their change idea number 2. Obviously number 1 didn't work, so they're going to try number 2. And it does seem to have decreased the time a bit. Now, at the beginning of the project, something that the team needs to come up with is a target. So in this case, let's say that the team said their goal, their target, was to do the lunch service process in 18 minutes or less. So at about 18 minutes, we're going to draw a dotted line and label it as target. So they do seem to be getting closer to their target, and change number 2 seems to have done well. So now they're going to implement change idea number 3. And they have one data point. On one day, it did happen in less than 18 minutes. But that doesn't mean they've necessarily achieved their goal just because it happened once. So there are specific rules to test what a significant change on a run chart is, and we will cover those in lesson 5. But in the meantime, this is just how we construct a run chart. And you can check out lesson 5 for how to analyze a run chart and detect a significant change.